Welcome to another video from Firefighter TDC. Today we're going to talk about inspecting rope and webbing. It's not exactly a hot topic, but it's one that I actually do get questioned about quite a bit during teaching, is how do I inspect my ropes? What do I look for? It seems like there's a lot of variation out there. Manufacturers do provide some instruction, different guides on it. Not many of them really have a lot of videos out there. They're usually by individual people like this. But I'll explain what I do. You still have to follow manufacturer's recommendations and instructions, but I'll explain how I inspect my ropes, the ones that I've invested in and use to keep people safe in training. So stick around and we'll go from there. So I've got a bunch of different pieces of rope and webbing here that we're going to talk about. I have a lot more in the equipment cache that I have for teaching and training, but these have different features that I wanted to discuss just in brief overview for this kind of quick video. So this first one is a escape rope or bailout rope. It's just a very short section of it. However, I wanted to explain the different types of construction and material. So this rope does have a heat shrink protector on the back of it. The reason for this is the rope doesn't melt. That's the whole point of bailout or escape ropes, is that they don't melt. To inspect this, I want to make sure that my ends are secured. And when I inspect it, a lot of it's by feel. Nothing's too squishy. It's all uniform and even. I'll actually roll it in my hand, and I'm looking for it to just kink over. If it kinks over really bad in a non-uniform fashion, then I know I have a bigger issue with it. Here, if you see this end, it's not taped. No matter what I do, if I try to take a lighter to this, it won't melt. It'll just start to discolor like this end here. So that's why it's important to heat shrink these to keep them, or tape them, to keep them from fraying. But this weave on weave construction here basically is a braid on braid. The outer one protects the strength of the inner, but they both have significant portions of the overall strength of the rope. So this is just one type of construction, more of an aramid style, fairly abrasion resistant for its intended purpose. There are others that'll wear better over a longer period of time, but this one, generally speaking, is going to resist far more heat than others. I'll show you another piece of that same rope, just cut. Again, you can see the inner fibers of it. Here it has a sewn termination on an end with a ring. Sometimes people wonder if this is actually weaker than tying a knot, but again, generally speaking, most manufacturers, this sewn termination will retain full strength of the rope. Let's just say theoretically, this is totally not the number, but theoretically this rope is let's say 3,000 pounds capable. By sewing the termination the rope is 3,000 pounds strong. If we put a knot, a figure eight on a bite, bowline, something, you'll lose 20-25%, whatever knot you use, of the strength overall of the rope. So that's why sewn terminations are very important. To inspect these, you want to look for any irregularities in here, any stitching that's coming undone. The terminations will generally have a little bit of fray on one end or the other. You'll see there's a little bit here, but it doesn't have large picking coming out here. The stitching is very uniform, and this is a good piece yet. The only reason this was cut is I didn't know the history of it when it was turned over to me, so I cut it to find a tracer inside, and in this piece I wasn't able to find one, so it was not kept in use. Speaking of tracers, here is a 1/2-inch static kern rope we use for rope rescue. The end, you can see, was melted at one point in time. It's more of a nylon rope. But inside, there's different types of fibers. And here we can see it's kind of dirty, but there's no major fraying or anything. But it's been in service a while with an organization that didn't keep very good records. So how do we know the age of this rope, and why does age matter? So this rope, if we take about a 2-foot section, or even 1.5 feet, okay, and we open it up in this fashion, if I look in there, let me get it right for the camera here. If I look in there, there's a tracer. This tracer says meets requirements for life safety rope of NFPA 1983, Underwriters Lab, registered, classified New England, so that's the manufacturer. 2014 second quarter is right here. 2014 second quarter. So this rope is good until 2028 second quarter if we know the history, if we know it hasn't been shock loaded, and at that 10-year maximum, according to most manufacturers, this rope would be serviceable. Again, no shock loading, no major damage. Even this little bit of discoloration and change in fabric appearance there isn't a big deal. But at 10 years, there's been some studies from a few different manufacturers. For example, Blue Water, CMC, PMI, Sterling. Some rough studies have been done, and they state that ropes will lose approximately 2% strength per year, even if it sits on a shelf out of direct sunlight. 2% a year. So let's put that in perspective. Our half-inch static current that we're all used to in the fire service, the G-rated 9,000-pound ropes, loses 2% per year. So at 10 years, I've lost 20% of my rope strength. That's 1,800 pounds off. Now tie a knot in it that takes another 20% off. Now we've reduced our 9,000-pound rope by 40%. So that's why it's important to remove them at the 10-year mark, even if they're unused. And that wasn't one manufacturer picking on another. It was found fairly consistently among different manufacturers. So 10-year rule is in NFPA 1983 because of the manufacturer's recommendation based on actual testing. It was, even in my opinion, it was not something just to sell more ropes. It's actually been tested by a few different places. So the next thing I want to show is this is a Prusik cord. This is one of mine made by PMI. I've got some CMC. I definitely like certain brands. There's another brand that I think I prefer even more, but that's for another discussion. But I do like different ones for different reasons. But as I said, this one is a PMI. It's an 8mm Prusik, pre-sewn. Some people call them Prusik. Lot numbers are on here for inspections. Manufacturer's lot, this lot number. The length of it, it's an 8mm, and then the model number itself. The reason I really like pre-sewn Prusiks, Prusiks, however you want to name them, is they're inspectable. If you've hand-tied your own cords, the issue becomes, do you untie it to inspect it annually? And there is some OSHA position papers out there. Even though we're not an OSHA state, it can be used in some litigation if anything happens. Did you tie them correctly? When did you last untie for inspection, etc.? But these allow us to inspect the stitching in here, and it's not going to focus well based on the color, and this outer sheath is a little bit cloudy. Others are definitely cleaner and more transparent than this, but it allows you to look at the stitching. Nothing's coming undone. It retains the strength because it's pre-sewn. But the main reason I wanted to show this exact one is because of the inspectable quality of it. If you look, you can see there's a little bit of depth variation here in the cord where the tracers are. That's normal for a lot of different cords. But when I get down to this end, I want to show this. What's different here? We have a color issue. So nice and green here, very dark and dingy there. What happened here, if I hold it both sides so we can see, is it was actually heated up because of friction. It was a triple wrap Prusik on a cord, and at about, and don't hold me to this, but it's a rough rule that around 1,000 pounds, and it's going to depend if you use a PMI Prusik on a PMI rope, PMI Prusik on a Sterling rope, a Sterling Prusik on a CMC rope, etc. But rough figure, about 1,000 pounds, this will start to slip, and it gives you a good indication of if you're putting too much force on your haul system or on a belay or wherever you're using it. And this one, if you could feel this, it actually feels tacky because we have melted the fibers of this Prusik. It's not severely damaged, and I may use it for personal things, But this is one where I am personally not very comfortable leaving in for rescue use anymore. Would I use this in training if I know the loads? Absolutely, I would, but I'm not comfortable putting somebody's life on this one at risk. But I would use it for other aspects of training. So this is a 8mm pre-sewn prusik. These run about, I don't know, they're around $13, $15. I think some are even up to $18 depending on who makes them. But interesting thing on this one was to be able to show you that heat issue of the strands here. And let's see what else. Here's another 8mm cord. I've got some 6mm, I've got some 8mm for different cording. This was my first bailout rope. So with this one, the things I wanted to show is I kept this in a pouch that I would transfer and put onto my SCBA if I went anywhere above, usually above 2 floors. So if I went 3rd floor and above, I would clip this onto my air pack and I would carry this bailout rope. It was a 50-foot Sterling static nylon rope, not very heat resistant, so it would melt fairly low temps, but it was my first one. This stayed in that pouch for more than its 10-year lifespan until I replaced it with one from Fire Innovations. But this rope, I wanted to show some different things. Where it sat in the bag during the duration of the time I had it, it got discolored from different things, different heat. This is from the grommet in the bag. I've tried cleaning this. This doesn't come out. You can see here some degradation. So the discoloration alone on this should be enough for you to be concerned about it. But overall, this rope was there. It was my insurance policy for when things went bad. It does have the tracer there that says when I started carrying it. But nylon ropes are not the best option for bailout, but they are an option. They're a less expensive version versus going back to the initial rope, which was made for heat resistant bailouts or escape use or even RIT kits. So moving on, I'll do one more piece of rope and then I'll bring up a piece of webbing. Here's another 1/2-inch static kern piece of rope. I wanted to show a lot of different things here. So this one is severely abraded right there. Here is just picking or pilling of the rope. You can see that piece of the weave, sorry, get it in focus here, that piece of the weave is damaged. This isn't extreme, but it's enough to be concerned about because if this snags on anything, it could actually cause further damage. Here's another rope with a severe cut to it. This will definitely take a rope out of service. And if you watch, when I roll the rope, like when I said I roll the rope, I'll do this and look for damage. Here I can see it's still holding the shape, but my feel test, tactile squeezing it, feeling it roll. Okay, all those different things will tell me stuff. So when I roll it back that way and I get to this area, if I don't have that sight visible, you can see it bends over really easy where it's cut. So that's another thing. If it's crushed, it'll do similar. Here's a very bad abrasion. Each of these are things that should make you consider taking this rope out of service, or some organizations will allow you to shorten the rope. Let's say it's a 200, the first 50 feet are shot. You can make it a 150, change the logbook, etc. But only if your organization allows it, you have the right equipment, you mark it correctly, and you know that no other damage has been done to it. Here's another spot, abrasion here. It's not soft, no big problems. Just rolling it through my hand here, more abrasion, but it's got a different feel to it right here on each side of this. And I couldn't tell you what it was because I didn't damage that part. I just noticed that it has a different feel to it. So moving along the rope, here again, a little abrasion, and just rolling it around, getting a feel for it. But this is how you'd inspect all ropes. This one's quite dirty. It's definitely not well taken care of, but it provides a usable example for us to talk about ropes and inspections. So going to inspect a piece of webbing. So with webbing, what I'll do is I will write the length and the year on them. This is just an example of when I will put them in service or when it's purchased. A lot of the times when you buy webbing at local stores, they won't tell you what year it was made. But when you buy it from actual climbing retailers or from rescue companies like I buy from, it'll have the lot number and everything on a tag that they stick right through it. So you'll know the lot number and the year. So I keep track of those things. You'll see this is cut straight. This is before I knew better. Let's just be honest. You should actually get these at an angle, which allows them to feed through tying knots a little bit easier. On this, you can see it was done with a rope and webbing cutter, which actually seals and melts the end nice and uniform. You can buy attachments for soldering guns too, the larger versions. So going through inspecting this, you can see there's some abrasion here. Right here on this edge, you can see there's a fairly good abraded spot. Webbing on its flats actually wears fairly well, but you have to be very careful for this on edges because the sides of this will actually take less abuse than the flats. So you can see more abrasion on the flat. If you see much on the edge, you got to be a little more concerned. So far, this one's a little bit dirty. Let's see if I can get it back in focus for you. There you go, a little dirty. Nothing major. Some abrasion. Here I made an X. We got some kind of a mark on here. It's sticky, so I don't know if it's melted or if it's more of a grease substance, but something you should look for during your inspections. Just going to pull this through. You can see some uneven wear there. It's not nice and straight across, but nothing that I would be concerned about there. Here, another abrasion. This one's a little bit worse, but it's over a bigger area. It's not one spot where it's being cut. All right. Again, fairly uniform. No major issues yet. Here you can see a little bit of the shape difference where that color is, that discoloration. More abrasion, not tacky, not sticky there. But here, if I hold it flat, let's see if I can catch it. If I hold it, you can actually see there's a rise right here in the webbing. That means that something has either been left in that position for a long time, just like this, like a lot of firefighters tend to keep webbing in a daisy chain in their pocket. I actually recommend against the daisy chain in your bunker gear, because if you ever need to take it out of a daisy chain with your gloves on, good luck. There's better ways to store it. Let me know if we need to get into that. But that's one more thing and another topic for another day. So just looking over this more here, more abrasion. I just marked the different spots on here. Nothing else too major yet. And then let's see here. Here is an example of a cut on the edge. And you can see it very clearly. Something sharp definitely got that. You can see it's actually opened up. And this, if it's if it's within a couple inches of the end, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Maybe seal it if it's like right in here. But otherwise, if we're talking about a foot or more, or even anywhere near the middle, this thing would come out of service for that kind of cut. So that's just a quick overview of webbing. Again, you have to use appropriate knots. Make sure you buy the right webbing. You can buy tubular webbing that's not really rated for life safety. There's flat webbing, and then there's mil spec and there's non-mil spec. So different manufacturers have, again, different ratings. Make sure you buy from reputable companies, CMC, Blue Water, Sterling, PMI, all make good products. So know what you're buying before you pick it up. And if you're going to be hanging on it or someone else, you better keep track of it and take good care of it. One other thing that I'd like to mention now before I forget in the rest of the video is when it comes to cleaning these, most manufacturers will recommend some kind of very mild detergent. But what I have found fairly consistently is if you can't find certain rope wash solution that very few manufacturers require, is to use Woolite, just a plain standard Woolite laundry detergent, not scented, not extreme cleans or anything like that. And then when you're done, a little bit of fabric softener. And certain manuals, and again, follow your manufacturer for your product, but some manuals will say to use a little bit of plain downy fabric softener liquid and just soak the rope in that for up to 15 minutes. I don't remember offhand, but I believe like the CMC guide actually mentions it if you don't have a rope wash solution and a conditioner. So follow your manufacturer's recommendations, but I do know I've read that in some of the manufacturers. So if you have questions on any of that, please let me know. So each of these ropes have different features about them that we can use or utilize in rope rescue, bailouts, escape kits, rip bags. But just know that there's a lot of different types out there. There's special rope for, water rescue. There's special rope for general life safety. In my equipment, currently I have 11 millimeter G rated, or about 9,000 pound rated. I have 11 millimeters, the same as 7/16. I have 11 millimeter T rated, or technical use, and it only goes, around that 5,000 mark. And I have a half inch or 12.5 millimeter G rated also. So you have to know which types of rope you have, which diameters of rope you have, what they're rated for, as well as the corresponding devices. Not every device, like certain rappel devices, we'll use Petzl, has a Petzl ID for the 11 mil, and they have a Petzl ID for the 12.5. Sirius, made by Skylotech, does a wide range of different sizes. The CMC Clutch by Harkin can do specific either 11 mil or 12.5 again, so 7/16 or half inch. Each one has their intended purpose, and you kind of have to know what you have out there. But each of the different ropes we have, you have to know what you're using. And if you don't know, you got to contact somebody that does. But using the wrong rope for the wrong reason, or the wrong application, such as a technical use rope in a high line that has a severe load or severe angles, can be absolutely dangerous. Follow your department's regulations, but also know that the state of Wisconsin, has a statute, I think it's SPS 330.10, says that we should use NFPA 1983 equipment, which is now NFPA 2500, incorporates 1983 also. So know the equipment, know what you have, know how to inspect it, and if you need any help, please get in touch, and I'd be happy to either help you or point you in a direction if I'm unable. So thanks for watching this video.